Good morning. As has been mentioned, we are grateful for your presence this morning. Thankful for those. We have a lot of people that are camping and are here for the holiday weekend. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to make it a priority to worship God away from your home congregation, and we're thankful that you decided to be with us this morning. We're going to go ahead and open your Bibles. We're going to be in the Old Testament this morning. Exodus is where we will be. Exodus and Genesis. Normally, when I get the opportunity to speak, I like to recognize someone that goes to church here for a great accomplishment they've had, for a milestone in their life. Last year, it was Frank and Hazel Word. They've been married 61 years. Frank forgot last year that it was 60, and I reminded him during the sermon that he'd been married 60 years. Today, I want to recognize, James, are we good? I want to recognize an individual who had a birthday yesterday. You might know who this man is. That's Donnie Newton. That picture was taken in November of 2003. For those of you that don't know, Donnie was Mr. November in Mexico for the calendar that they had that year. It's real grainy because digital pictures weren't real big back then, but this is Donnie laying on a bed of rocks that we had that we were using to make foundations for the church down there. And one day I might get up the nerve to tell that story of that trip, because as many as you may know, and probably a lot of you don't know, we were incarcerated in San Pedro, Mexico. I'll leave it at that. But happy birthday to Donnie yesterday, who turned 76. Webster's Dictionary has over 470,000 entries in it. There's new words added every year. This is the longest word in the dictionary, 45 letters. I can't pronounce it, but if you will look right here, the word volcano is in it, and it's just, basically this word means it's a disease you get if you take in too much volcano ash. I don't foresee anybody here having that disease or getting that disease. But no word in the English language gets under my skin more than this word right here. It's 3 letters. For those of you who have young children, you know what I'm talking about. Because on a daily basis, sometimes on an hourly basis, if you give someone a task, usually it's followed with the word why. Why do I have to do it? Why doesn't she have to do it? Why can't we do it later? And to me, I guess the reason it sets me off is for a couple of reasons. One, it kind of questions my authority. And then it kind of questions the little intelligence that I have left. There's those 3 little words. And a lot of you parents shaking your head, yes, because if you've got anybody under the age of 21 living at home, you still get these. So this morning we're going to talk about two people. We're going to talk about Moses and we're going to talk about Rebecca. We're going to talk about, one of them asked why a lot. The other one didn't. But I want you to be thinking this morning, when we go through the lesson, on how does God feel when he asks us to do something? And then our first response is always, why me? Not in a sense of, I've got some disease, I've got health problems. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you're asked to do something for the kingdom, why do we always respond with why? So let's start in Exodus chapter 3. And Exodus chapter 3 and chapter 4 has become one of my favorite stories in the Bible. Not because it's some prolific chapter on how you're supposed to live your life and it's this earth-shattering knowledge that you get, but because it's a very simple verse with a very simple meaning. And I would venture to say that when you read this morning, when you listen to it being read, that you're going to get something out of it that you can use, and you've probably been in this situation before. So let's start in chapter 3, and we'll start in verse 11. In the beginning of chapter 3, as you know, is when Moses was at the burning bush. In verse 11, but Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. Verse 13, Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your father has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? Then what should I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. In my Bible, it's all caps. I am who I am. This is what you should say to the Israelites. I am has sent you. And then in verse 15 through the end of the chapter, God speaks that whole verse, and he's trying to explain to Moses, this is what's going to happen. This is what you need to do. And that goes all the way through the end of the chapter. So at the end of chapter 3, I'm envisioning Moses sitting there listening to God, kind of like our kids do. He's listening, but he's not paying attention. I'm guessing there's some eyes being rolled as God's talking to him. Because you got to remember, Moses was a shepherd, so he didn't have a lot of interaction with people, nor was he a leader. And that's what God was wanting him to do, was be a leader for the Israelites. So he's a little overwhelmed, I'm sure, at the first time he gets to talk to God. He sees a burning bush, and God is telling him, just tell him that I am who I am, in all caps. God started out being patient with Moses, as you're going to see. Very patient. Because God understood that he was asking a big job of Moses. He was asking him to step up from being a shepherd to being a leader. Chapter 4. Verse 1. Moses answered, what if they do not believe me or listen to me and say, the Lord did not appear to you? Then the Lord said to him, what is that in your hand? A staff, he replied. The Lord said, throw it on the ground. Moses threw it on the ground, and it became a snake, and he ran from it. Then the Lord said to him, reach out your hand and take it by the tail. Now, if this is me in the place of Moses, this is where this chapter would have ended. Because I'm not picking up a snake. We'd have went on to chapter 5. We wouldn't have worried about having to speak, because I'm not doing it. Verse 5. This, said the Lord, is so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. Then the Lord said, put your hand inside your cloak. So Moses put his hand into his cloak, and when he took it out, it was leprous, like snow. Now put it back into your cloak. So Moses put his hand back into his cloak, and when he took it out, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. Verse 8. Then the Lord said, if they do not believe you or pay attention to the first miraculous sign, then they may believe the second. But if they do not believe these two signs, listen to you, take some water from the Nile and pour it on the dry ground. The water you take from the river will become blood on the ground. Moses said to the Lord, O Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. Verse 11. The Lord said to him, who gave man his mouth? Who makes him deaf or mute? Who gives him sight or makes him blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and teach you what to say. We do the same thing as Moses did, don't we? We lack that self-confidence that he lacked. He said he wasn't an elegant speaker. But God just got there telling him in verse 12, I'm going to tell you how to speak and what to say. But Moses still didn't believe him. 3 miracles he performed in front of him. 3. And he still didn't believe him. He still didn't want to trust him. in verse 11, he pleads with him. He says, verse 13, "Oh Lord, please send someone else to do it." Why me? I'm not a good speaker. My opinion, I think God came into this situation. He was going to have a hard time getting the Israelites to recognize who he was. And instead, he had a harder time getting Moses to understand that God wanted him to be the leader of the Israelites. So God had to flip his switch a little bit, because he was expecting Moses, I think, to raise his hand and say, "I'll do it. I'm good to go." But instead, he spent all of his energy trying to get Moses to be a leader. I think that's how I am sometimes. When I'm asked to do something here, asked to do something for the church, I'm like, you need to go find somebody else. I can't do it. I'm not made for it, not built for it, not a good speaker, whatever. The excuses go on and on. It's an infinite list. We can come up with them. He came up with them. And this was the first leader that God had chosen. I feel like in verse 12 that if this was me, my patience would have run out. And I would have said, if I'm dealing with my kids, I would have said, "Go. Stop asking me. I'm tired of answering the questions. I'm tired of talking about it." But God didn't do that. So go on down to 14. What happened? God got mad. He got angry. But he didn't kill him. He didn't strike him dead. He burned with anger. The Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, and I'm expecting he gave a big sigh, and he said, "What about your brother? Will he do it? Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do this task, or they won't get out. They're not going to get out. They're going to stay where they are for the rest of their life. I'm asking you to do it." He didn't expect Moses to do it alone. He told him he was going to be there with him. He told him, "I'm going to be with you every step of the way. I'm going to tell you what to say." It's no different than us today. God doesn't expect us to do it alone. He didn't expect Moses to do it alone. He's not going to expect us to do it alone. Flip over to Genesis 24, and let's look at someone, in this instance in her life, that she didn't ask why. She just performed the task. Rebekah, as you know, was the wife of Isaac, the mother of Esau and Jacob. She was, by most standards, she was an initiator. She was a go-getter. When she saw a need, she took action. It wasn't always the right action, but she took action. So let's start in 24 and verse 12. Then he prayed, "O Lord, God of my master Abraham, give me success today and show kindness to my master Abraham. See, I am standing beside this spring, and the daughters of the townspeople are coming out to draw water. May it be that when I say to the girl, 'Please let down your jar so that I may have a drink,' and she says, 'Drink, I'll water your camels too,' let her be the one you have chosen for your servant Isaac. By this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master." Before he had finished praying, Rebekah came out with her jar on her shoulder. She was the daughter of Bethuel, son of Malachi, who was the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor. The girl was very beautiful, a virgin. She went down to the spring, filled her jar, and came up again. Verse 17, the servant hurried to meet her and said, "Please give me a little water from your jar." "Drink, my lord," she said, and quickly lowered the jar to her hands and gave him a drink. After she had given him a drink, she said, I'll draw water for your camels too, until they have finished drinking." So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough, ran back to the well to draw more water, and drew enough for all of his camels. Without saying a word, the man watched her closely to learn whether or not the Lord had made his journey successful. Rebekah's servant spirit was clearly seen in this chapter. She quickly drew water without asking the word why. She just ran out of the house, got a bucket, filled it up with water, gave water to the men, even gave water to the camels. I don't know how long they'd been traveling. Let's just say, for argument's sake, they've been traveling a week. Let's say they had 5 camels. So 5 gallons of water weighs about 8 pounds. A gallon of water weighs about 8 pounds. So it's about 40 pounds in a 5-gallon bucket of water that she's carrying. A camel on a hot day can drink 30 gallons of water. So she's toting 6 5-gallon buckets of water back and forth to keep the camels watered and fed. So for each camel, she carried 30 gallons of water, weighing a total of 240 pounds. So 5 camels, 30 gallons of water. She hauled over 1,250 pounds of water to camels, stinking camels. She didn't squabble. She didn't ask why. She said nothing. She saw the men come out. She came out of the house. She saw a need. She took action. How many times she complained about having to water a bunch of camels? None. It doesn't specifically say this, but you can kind of decipher from reading in verse 12 that he prayed, he being the servant of Abraham prayed, "Oh God, if it be, send someone out to water myself and my camels." And if you go on and read the chapter, she ends up being the wife of Isaac, and that was the whole point of the men traveling through the city, was they were hoping someone would come out and be the wife. She never asked why, but God had his hand in it. God told her, "Go outside, feed these people's camels." Often we're faced with opportunities to do something for the good of Christ. More times than not, our first response is why? Why? I get mad at my kids for asking me why, so I'm imagining that God gets pretty upset when I ask why when he asks me to do something. As we talked in Exodus 4 and 14, he burned with anger because Moses kept making excuses on why he could not do this task. He gives us numerous resources, numerous. The list is endless. Whether it be our hands, our mouth, our presence. You know, the mission group that's in Nicaragua, they've used all those resources this week, doing various Bible classes, VBSs, anything. These 2 stories, he used a simple shepherd's staff, wooden staff, probably 3 to 6 foot long, and a bucket. That's all they had. It was a wooden staff and a bucket. It wasn't some elaborate piece of gold, something or another that you had to make. Something that every day, they use every day. A jar to put water in, a staff to keep the sheep safe. So my question to you this morning is, how many buckets have you got lying around for Jesus that you could fill up? Numerous? How many have you filled up? How many times, how often do you take the time to take a 5-gallon bucket and put something in it for Jesus? So in closing, some of you asking, does God ever ask us why? Yeah, he does. He used that word is in his vocabulary as well. If you want to turn over to the New Testament, to Acts chapter 8. Acts chapter 8, verse 36. We all know the story of Philip and the eunuch. So the eunuch's riding down the road, reading, and he asks Philip, what does this passage mean? Philip explains it to him. They drive by water, and he says, here's water. Why can't I be baptized? It's all you need, water. Philip could have said, like we do sometimes, well, I'm not real sure you know the Bible enough to be baptized. Philip didn't say that. Philip said, let's go. And Morris makes his point a lot of times when he does a Devo, is Christianity is the only backwards degree that you'll ever get. You get your degree first, and you can do all the learning on the backside. That's why Philip didn't tell the eunuch, you got to go learn some more before you be baptized. That's not the point. That's not the purpose. And I love that illustration because it's true. Philip didn't discourage the eunuch. Philip welcomed him with open arms and said, let's go, brother. You got water? Let's go do it. So that's the question that God asks us. Why? If you haven't become a Christian, why? It's not because there's not any water. It's not because you don't know about the Bible. Self-confidence like Moses? Only you can answer that question. So if you're here this morning and you have not done what the eunuch did and ask, where's water? It's here. It's here 7 days a week, any time of the day. There's no certain day of the week you have to get baptized. No certain time of day you have to get baptized. But the point is, it could be too late. I don't know if you noticed or not, but in the story with Moses, he used fire and he used a snake. Two most, I don't want to say deadliest, two most devilish things that exist in my mind. And he used water with Rebekah. Symbolic? I don't know.